Well, do you remember someone I love so much called Justin Bieber? That's what he did. He got arrested because he and his father was doing that.
Hi, everybody. As promised, we're back in Miami Beach, and right here on South Point is one of the best spots to watch the cruise ships as they come and go from the massive port over in the city of Miami.
The video is about to start. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. There we go! Carl Fisher. I see this name all over Miami Beach. Fisher Island, Carl Fisher School, this Fisher, Fisher that, Fisher that.
Yep.
Who is Carl Fisher?
Carl Fisher is the man that actually ended up earning the nickname Mr. Miami Beach. In the 1900s, when the Venetian Causeway was still a little wooden bridge, they ran out of money. Well, Carl Fisher was the man who actually came in and financed the projects that they had in mind that they didn't have the money to finish, like the Lummis Brothers cottage development and the Collins Bridge. Carl Fisher made his fortune in Indianapolis, Indiana. He grew up really poor. His father was an alcoholic and abandoned the family, and when he was a teenager, he had to support his 7 brothers and sisters and his mom. And he did that by racing and repairing bicycles. In the 1800s, bicycles were the thing, and you can make a lot of money in the bicycle business.
Okay.
But Carl Fisher, being a very forward thinker, in the back of his little bicycle shop, he tinkered with these new inventions called automobiles.
Oh.
And he was very good at it, and he ended up with a large and profitable automobile dealership. He designed and built the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Still in use today, the Indy 500 is an internationally famous race. That was Carl Fisher.
Wow.
He also, because of his love of cars, he financed and designed the Lincoln Highway from east to west across the United States and the Dixie Highway from north to south. And it was he then who financed those big projects that really made Miami Beach change from a farming community into a tourist resort destination.
Wow.
In exchange for these very generous investments, what do you think they gave him?
Land?
Land, exactly.
Okay.
But it wasn't really great land. It was old abandoned farmland. A lot of it was still very shrubby and jungly. He spent a great deal of his fortune developing what we now see as a major resort destination.
Wow.
It was he who dredged the bay for his beloved boat racing. He built large Mediterranean-style resorts, polo fields, tennis courts, golf courses. Right in this area of the convention center, there were 4 golf courses. This beautiful little building back here was the clubhouse for all their posh golf courses.
Oh, nice.
And he built Lincoln Road with beautiful fancy streets. He used his pet elephants to pull out the jungle and sometimes caddy at the golf course. When he dredged the bay, he actually used all that muck and mud to enlarge the peninsula here of Miami Beach.
Oh.
We are about 30% larger thanks to his development than we would have been before. And all the islands like Palm Island, Hibiscus Island, Star Island, those were also all created during that time period by Carl Fisher.
This story also connects something that the rivalry between the 2 cities, because as you know from former videos, Miami Beach is not Miami. And Miami is not Miami Beach. They're 2 separate institutions, 2 separate everything. Even they're separated by water.
Oh yes, physically and culturally.
Yes. So therefore, this was a way for people to focus more.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
The rivalry between Miami and Miami Beach went back and forth several times, and it's still going back and forth, yeah. Well, even the decision to name this Miami Beach was a big discussion. In 1915, we incorporated as a town. And by that time, basically 3 families had carved up the area. The Lummis brothers, who were doing their cottages for working people, the Collins family, who was doing their farming project, and then Carl Fisher, who was doing his resort for rich people from the north. And they all 3 had companies. The Lummis brothers had a company called Ocean Beach Realty. Carl Fisher had Alton Beach Realty. The Collins family had the Miami Beach Improvement Company. So when it came time to name the city, as you might imagine, there was quite a bit of discussion. We know who won the debate because we are now called Miami Beach. And it was decided to do Miami Beach because at the time, Miami Beach was about 10 to 20 years ahead of us in their development. So they were a little bit more of a star. Now, a few decades later, Miami Beach leapfrogged right over Miami and became the star and the big resort destination for decades.
What beautiful trees we have here. And this is great, and it's big. And I see that it has like little grapes sometimes.
Yeah.
What is that about?
Well, these are sea grape trees. And Carl Fisher, when he was progressing in his vision to make this the American Riviera, he actually hired Japanese gardeners to come in and eradicate all the local plants and birds, then import all other exotic species from around the world.
Oh, wow.
However, these are one of the few indigenous plants that still flourish here. They're sea grape trees. As you can see, the little clusters of sea grapes starting to emerge there. But the most fun fact about this tree is it's called the Postcard Tree. Because if you take a leaf that's just about the right size, nice and soft, pick it right up off the ground, you can put a stamp and an address, and guess what? It'll go through the post.
Oh, wow.
I mailed one to myself once to see if it would work, and it did.
How cool.
This is the Miami Beach Community Church.
Yes.
It's called the Miami Beach Community Church. That's the original name when it was built in 1920. It's the first church ever in Miami Beach.
Wow.
It was built by Carl Fisher because Carl Fisher's wife, Jane, admonished him that we could not have a proper community or city without a church. He didn't really want to build it, so he did it as a favor to her. So this is the beautiful church. It's Spanish Baroque architecture, and it looks as beautiful today as it did the day it opened. It's still a much-loved, multi-denominational church where people from all over Miami Beach and all over the world can come and worship together.
Interesting.
The other interesting thing about this building is the architectural style. It's quite embellished on the outside, but if you go inside, it's very Spartan and serene. And that was done by the architect Digamo in 1920 because he knew that Lincoln Road was going to be a very hustly, bustly kind of street of commerce. And he wanted the people inside the church to be able to escape the hustle and bustle of the street and be serene in their worship on the inside.
Beautiful. Pine Tree Drive. These trees are not from Miami. These trees are from Australia, right?
Yes. Yeah. These trees are over 100 years old. They're Australian pine trees. They are huge. They are massive. And these trees are here because John Collins decided that he needed them as part of his effort to save the coconut farms that he had invested in. Well, he came down to salvage his investment in those failed coconut farms, and he needed to make a number of changes. First of all, he got rid of the idea of coconuts because they're not native here, and that was a disaster. Then he decided that it was best to get the crops away from the ocean and the sandy, salty air. So he moved them a little further north here to the mid-beach area, and to protect his new crop from the ocean wind, he planted these great big pine trees to block the wind from the fragile crops. And they're here today, thus the name Pine Tree Drive.
So we heard about the story about the trees and all that stuff, but there is something else that happened here in 2014. And as you see, the cars go by, and it's like, you think about it, it kind of makes sense. It makes sense if you have that kind of mind to make this avenue into speed racetrack. So it looks very provocative. Like if you have a yellow Lamborghini and if you're 19 years old, you might be tempted to speed on this road. Well, do you remember someone I love so much called Justin Bieber? That's what he did. He got arrested because he and his father was doing that. So I think it was a red and a yellow Lamborghini or something like that. The point is, it happened right here. It was all over the news, and now you understand why people will want to speed on this road. And because of that, the road has a very tight speed limit. I think it's 25 miles per hour, but
which
nobody
goes
at that speed. But anyway.
This is Miami Beach. Lincoln Road, it has a beautiful history. Lincoln Road was the first street cut from the ocean to the bay across the jungle-covered mangrove swamp.
Oh, wow.
And it was cut in the early 1900s by, who else? Carl Fisher. But the funny reason he wanted it was that his mansion, the Shadows, was built right at the end of this street on the ocean. His big Mediterranean-style resort was built at the other end of this street on the bay. And he had an automobile that he wanted to drive from his home to his place of business. So he decided that then, of course, there must be a street here for him to ride all the way straight to. And then in the middle of the street, halfway between the endpoints, he built his big real estate office.
Okay.
This is called Lincoln Road because Carl Fisher idolized President Lincoln and used the term Lincoln in many of his projects throughout his life. Lincoln Road was built in the early 1900s, and Carl Fisher always wanted it to become popular with his wealthy tourists coming from the north. So he had it lined with posh shops. Very expensive. There were car dealerships here, movie theaters, expensive stores, Saks Fifth Avenue, jewelry stores, all for the wealthy people that would be coming to visit Miami Beach in the 1920s. This is all original, 1920s. When Carl Fisher built this street, he wanted it lined with posh shops to appeal to those wealthy visitors. This was a Cadillac dealership. And you see up above that beautiful embellishment. It's a Cadillac, and look at their love of technology. They were so enamored with anything modern during that time period. You see the airplanes and all the Aztecian details from King Tut's tomb, 1922. So yeah, this is a beautiful example of that 1920s architecture. This monument is a tip of the hat to Mr. Miami Beach, Carl Fisher. When he was advertising the American Riviera in the 1920s, there's a story that he erected a billboard in Times Square, Midtown Manhattan, New York City, in January, the height of winter.
Wow.
And it was a thermometer showing 80 degrees Fahrenheit, a few palm trees, and it said, it's June right now in Miami Beach. Ooh. So all these years later, people come from all over the world to have their picture taken in front of the calendar showing the date and the thermometer showing the warm temperatures, and then how fast can you say Instagram?